The twin moons of planet Rhinus shone weakly through thick clouds, painting the narrow streets in pale silver light. The air was cold and the ground was covered with layers of dust. Two small figures walked slowly between the dark alleys, holding each other's hands tightly. Their thin clothes were torn and their steps were weak. The older one, a young alien girl named Lyra, looked around with tired eyes. Her younger sister, Noma, was only 7 and too small to understand the full pain of hunger. Their species, the Rhinians, were once proud and peaceful. But after the human colonies arrived, many planets like Rhinus lost their value. Trade had stopped, crops had died, and the people suffered. Lyra and Noma had lost their parents a year ago when the food shortage spread across their village. Since then, Lyra had tried everything to keep them alive. She searched for work, begged near the human trade ports, and sometimes found half-eaten food thrown near the space docks. That night was colder than usual. The wind blew hard through the broken buildings, carrying dust and metal smell from the human factories far away. Noma's stomach made a soft sound. She stopped walking and looked up at her sister. Her bright yellow eyes were filled with tears. "Lyra, I am hungry," she said softly. Her small hands held her empty stomach as she began to cry. Lyra knelt beside her and hugged her gently. Her own stomach was empty too, but she didn't show her pain. She brushed Noma's pale blue hair away from her eyes and whispered, "It's all right, Noma. I'll find something for you to eat. I promise." But deep inside, Lyra had no plan left. She had already searched every trash bin near the market that day. The humans didn't like Rhinians begging near their stores. The last time she tried, a human guard shouted and pushed her away. Even now, her arm still ached from that shove. She looked around the dark street. Most of the lights were off because people couldn't afford energy anymore. Only one building at the corner had a glowing sign. It was a human cafe where the rich officers from the trade station often came at night. She knew she couldn't enter, but maybe there was leftover food in the waste box behind it. "Come with me, Noma," she said, trying to sound brave. "I think we can find something." They walked quietly along the narrow road. Every step made a small echo in the empty street. When they reached the back of the cafe, Lyra peeked behind the wall. The kitchen lights were still on, and a few humans were laughing inside. She waited until they went away, then slowly opened the metal bin. The smell was bad, but she searched carefully, hoping for a small piece of bread or fruit. After a few minutes, she found a half-eaten sandwich wrapped in paper. It wasn't much, but to her it looked like treasure. She smiled and gave it to Noma. The little girl took it with shaking hands and ate slowly, her eyes closing with relief. Lyra watched her sister eat. A tear rolled down her cheek, but she quickly wiped it away. She was happy that Noma had food, but sad that this was their life now, hiding, begging, and depending on others' waste. When Noma finished eating, Lyra held her close again. "We'll be fine," she whispered. "I'll take care of you." Just then a sudden light fell on them. Lyra turned around and froze. A tall human man stood there, holding a small light device. He wore a long coat and had sharp eyes, but his face looked calm, not angry. "What are you doing here?" he asked in a low voice. Lyra quickly pulled Noma behind her. "I am sorry," she said nervously. "We didn't take anything. We were only looking for food." The man looked at the sandwich in Noma's hands, then at the two girls. He saw how thin and weak they were. He sighed and lowered his light. "You shouldn't be here. It's dangerous at night. There are patrols that don't like outsiders." Lyra didn't answer. She didn't trust humans easily. Most of them didn't care about Rhinians at all. The man looked thoughtful for a moment. "Wait here," he said, and walked back into the cafe. Lyra almost ran away, afraid he would call the guards. But before she could move, he came back holding a small bag. He placed it on the ground near them and said, "There's some bread and soup in here. Take it." Lyra was shocked. "Why are you helping us?" He looked at her for a moment before answering. "Because you look like you need help," he said simply, "and because kindness should not depend on species." Then he turned and walked away into the dark street, leaving them alone. Lyra stood there in silence. She opened the bag slowly and found warm food inside. Noma's face lit up again. She sat down on the cold ground and started eating, smiling for the first time in days. Lyra watched her and felt something strange. Hope. It was a small feeling, but it made her heart lighter. Maybe not all humans were cruel. Maybe some of them still cared. When Noma finished the food, she leaned against her sister and soon fell asleep. Lyra looked up at the twin moons again. The cold wind touched her face, but she didn't feel as hopeless as before. She whispered softly, "Thank you, whoever you are." The next morning, the sun rose slowly over the broken city. Lyra woke up before Noma and thought about the man from the night before. She wondered who he was. A worker? A soldier? Maybe someone from the trade station. She wanted to find him and thank him properly, but then she remembered their situation. They still had no place to live, no job, and no money. She couldn't just rely on luck forever. That day, she decided to look for work again. She tied a small piece of cloth around Noma's shoulders to keep her warm and walked toward the main market. The smell of oil and metal filled the air. Machines hummed loudly as humans sold tools, fuel, and parts for ships. Rhenians were often ignored there, but Lyra hoped someone would give her a chance. She asked every shop, but most people shook their heads. "No work for your kind," they said. By noon, she was exhausted. Her feet hurt and her throat was dry. She sat near a wall watching the humans pass by. They looked so strong and confident. Their clothes were clean, their faces full of purpose. She wondered how different their lives were from hers. Just then, Noma tugged her hand. "Lyra, look," she said, pointing at something. Across the street, a human officer was putting up a poster. It showed a picture of a large ship with the words "Help Wanted, Crew Assistance for Human Trade Fleet." Lyra's heart started beating faster. Maybe this was their chance. Maybe if she could work for the humans, she could earn food and shelter for both of them. But the thought scared her too. She didn't know if humans would accept her kind in such jobs. Still, she couldn't ignore the small hope inside her. She looked at her sister, smiled softly, and said, "Let's go see if they will let me work there." Together, they started walking toward the human post, not knowing that this small decision would change their lives forever. Lyra stood with Noma in front of the tall building where the poster had been placed. The metal walls shone under the weak sunlight. Big human guards stood near the door, scanning everyone who came in. Lyra held Noma's hand tightly, her heart beating fast. She looked up at the sign again. It clearly said that helpers were needed for the human trade fleet. She knew it was a risk, but she also knew she had no choice. If she did nothing, Noma would suffer again. With slow steps, she moved closer to the entrance. The guards looked at her with curious eyes. One of them raised an eyebrow. "What do you want?" he asked. Lyra bowed her head slightly. "I came to ask about the job." "The one for helpers," the guard frowned. "You're a Rhenian, aren't you?" "Yes," she answered softly. He looked at her clothes, torn and dusty. For a moment he said nothing. Then he sighed. "Wait here." He walked inside while the other guard kept watching her. Lyra stood silently, feeling the cold metal floor under her bare feet. Noma held her sister's arm and whispered, "Will they let you work?" Lyra smiled weakly. "I hope so. If they do, maybe we can eat every day." A few minutes later, the guard came back with another person. It was a human woman wearing a clean uniform. She looked kind but serious. "You want to work on the trade fleet?" she asked. "Yes," Lyra said quickly. "I can clean, cook, or help with anything." The woman looked at Noma. "Is that your sister?" "Yes, she's small. I can't leave her alone." The woman crossed her arms and thought for a moment. "We don't usually take Rhenians," she said, "but we do need more helpers. The last few workers left because of the long trips. It's not easy work. The fleet travels between planets. Sometimes you won't see land for many days." Lyra nodded. "I can do it. I can work hard." The woman looked at her again, studying her eyes. "You're not afraid of humans?" Lyra hesitated before answering. "Not all humans," she said quietly. "Some are kind." The woman gave a small smile. "You can come in and speak with Captain Rennell. He makes the final choice. But your sister must stay outside. The area inside is not safe for children." Lyra looked down at Noma. The little girl clung to her arm. "I'll wait here," Noma said softly. "Go, Lyra, maybe this will help us." Lyra hugged her and whispered, "Stay close to the wall. Don't move until I come back." Then she followed the woman inside. The building was huge. Machines hummed everywhere and the air smelled of oil and smoke. Humans moved quickly through the halls, carrying boxes and data pads. Lyra felt small among them, but she kept walking until they reached a room with a large desk. A tall man sat there reading from a screen. He looked up when they entered. "Captain Ronnell," the woman said. "This Rhenian girl wants to work as a helper. The captain leaned back in his chair. His eyes were sharp but not unkind. "A Rinian?" he asked. "We don't usually hire them. They have trouble with long travel." Lyra took a deep breath. "Please, sir. I can do anything. I can clean, serve food, fix small things. I just need a chance." He looked at her for a moment. "Why do you want this job so badly?" "My sister and I have no home," she said honestly. "I want to feed her. I don't want her to cry from hunger again." Her voice shook a little, but she didn't look away. The captain stood up and walked around the desk. He looked at her hands, her thin arms, and her tired eyes. "How old are you?" 17, she said. He nodded slowly. "You'll have to follow rules. The work is long and hard. You'll live on the ship during travel. You'll clean and help in the kitchen. No complaints, no trouble. If you agree, I can give you food, a bed, and some credits every week." Lyra's eyes filled with tears of relief. "I agree," she said quickly. "Fine," said the captain. "You start tomorrow. Report here before sunrise." She bowed her head. "Thank you, Captain. Thank you so much." The woman smiled slightly and guided her back to the entrance. When Lyra stepped outside, she saw Noma sitting near the wall playing with a small piece of metal she had found. Lyra ran to her and hugged her tightly. "What happened?" Noma asked. "I got the job," Lyra said, smiling for the first time in many days. "We'll have food now, but I'll have to go with them on the ship." "You can't come?" Noma's smile faded. "But where will I go?" Lyra held her sister's face gently. "I'll find a safe place for you to stay. Maybe with other Rinians. I'll send food and money whenever I can." Noma began to cry again. "I don't want to be without you." Lyra's heart broke, but she stayed strong. "I don't want that either. But if I don't work, we'll both suffer. I promise I'll come back for you." That evening, they walked to the small camp outside the city where some Rinian families lived. The camp was made of metal sheets and cloth, but at least it gave shelter from the wind. Lyra found an old woman named Sarah who used to know their parents. She explained the situation and begged her to take care of Noma for a while. Sarah looked at the two sisters with kind eyes. "I will watch her," she said. "You're a brave girl, Lyra. Go do what you must." Lyra hugged her sister again, holding her close. "Be good, Noma. Listen to Sarah. I'll be back soon." Noma nodded, tears shining in her eyes. "I'll wait for you." When the night came, Lyra sat alone outside the camp watching the stars. She thought about the humans she had met. The kind man who gave them food, the captain who offered her a chance. Maybe not all humans were cruel. Maybe there was still hope for peace between their kinds. As she looked up at the dark sky, she saw small lights moving. Human ships leaving and returning from trade routes. Tomorrow, one of those ships would carry her far from Rhinus. She didn't know where it would go or what she would face. But she knew one thing clearly. She would do anything for Noma. The next morning, she arrived at the port before sunrise. The air was cold, and the ground vibrated from the sound of large engines warming up. She saw the huge trade ship standing like a metal mountain, its lights blinking slowly. The name Starwind was written across its side. Captain Ronell stood near the entrance, giving orders to the crew. When he saw Lyra, he nodded. "You came early, good." "Yes, Captain," she said, bowing her head. He handed her a small uniform. "Wear this. You'll work under Chief Helper Mira. She'll tell you what to do." Lyra took the uniform and followed Mira onto the ship. The corridors were bright and full of noise. She saw humans moving boxes, fixing machines, and talking loudly. Everything felt new and strange, but also exciting. Mira showed her a small room with a narrow bed. "This will be your place," she said. "Rest when you can. Work hard and the captain will treat you fairly." Lyra thanked her. As the engines roared, the ship slowly lifted off the ground. She looked out the small window and saw the city growing smaller and smaller. Somewhere below was Noma, watching the sky, waiting for her. Lyra touched the window and whispered, "I'll come back with food, Noma, I promise." As the stars began to fill the sky, the trade ship Starwind left the planet, carrying with it a young girl's hope and the love that would soon test her beyond imagination. The trade ship Starwind moved through space like a shining arrow. Its engines glowed softly and the stars looked like silver dust around it. Inside the ship, everything was clean and bright. Machines hummed quietly, and humans walked through the halls busy with their work. Lyra had never seen anything like it before. The air smelled different here, not dusty like her home planet. Everything seemed alive with sound and light. On her first morning, she woke early, dressed in her new uniform, and met Chief Helper Mira in the main hall. Mira was a kind but strict woman who expected everyone to work quickly and quietly. "Today you help in the kitchen," Mira said. "Clean the tables, wash the dishes, and bring food to the crew room when I tell you." Lyra nodded and started her work. The humans around her were tall and busy, but no one spoke unkindly to her. Some looked at her with curiosity, but others smiled politely. She worked hard without rest, wanting to prove she was useful. The kitchen smelled of warm bread and soup. She tried not to think about how hungry she was, but sometimes Mira gave her a small piece of leftover bread, which she ate thankfully. As the days passed, Lyra learned the routines of the ship. She cleaned the cabins, carried tools, and sometimes helped fix small things. She liked watching the stars from the window in the hallway. They reminded her of home, of the nights she spent comforting Noma under the cold sky. Each time she saw a bright star, she whispered her sister's name and prayed she was safe with Sarah in the camp. One afternoon, while Lyra was cleaning near the control room, she heard a voice behind her. "Working hard? I see." She turned and saw Captain Ronell. His hands were behind his back, and he looked calm as always. "Yes, Captain," Lyra said softly. "I want to do my best." The captain nodded. "You've done well. Mira told me you never complain. That is rare among new workers." Lyra lowered her eyes. "Thank you, Captain. I only want to earn food for my sister." He looked at her for a long moment. "You have a good reason." "I respect that." Lyra hesitated, then said, "Captain, may I ask something? Do you think humans and Rhinians can ever live together as friends?" The captain seemed thoughtful. "That depends on both sides. Many humans do not understand your kind, but there are some who believe peace is possible. I am one of them." Lyra smiled a little. "I hope so too." He nodded and walked away. His words stayed in her heart. For the first time, she began to believe that kindness could exist even among those who once ignored her people. Weeks passed quickly. The ship visited 2 human stations and 1 trade planet. Lyra saw markets full of bright lights and strange foods. She often stayed on board, but sometimes Mira let her step outside for a few minutes when the air was safe. She always thought of Noma, wishing her little sister could see these beautiful places. One evening, as she finished cleaning the dining hall, Mira came to her with a serious look. "Lyra, the captain wants to see you," she said. Lyra's heart beat fast. She wondered if she had done something wrong. She followed Mira through the halls to the captain's office. When she entered, Captain Ronell looked up from his screen. "Come in," he said. "Sit down." She sat carefully on the chair in front of his desk. "I received a message from Rhinus," the captain said. It was a trade report, but there was also a notice. "Many camps near the city have been moved. The government is clearing them for new buildings." Lyra's eyes widened. "Camps? Which camps?" "The message didn't say which ones," he replied. "But I thought you should know since your sister is there." Her hand started to shake. "That means they might have moved her too." The captain looked at her kindly. "I'm sorry, Lyra, I know this worries you. I'll ask the communication officer to help you send a message back. Maybe someone can tell you where she is." Lyra's voice was small. "Thank you, Captain. That means everything to me." That night she couldn't sleep. She sat by the small window in her cabin, staring at the endless stars. Her heart was heavy with fear. What if she could not find Noma again? What if the camp was gone? She closed her eyes and tried to stay calm. She remembered Noma's smile and the promise she had made before leaving. "I'll come back with food, Noma, I promise." She couldn't break that promise. The next day, with help from the communication officer, she sent a short message to Sarah's old contact line. She didn't know if it would reach, but it was her only hope. Days went by with no answer. Then one evening, while she was cleaning the upper hall, a voice called her name. It was Mira, holding a small data pad. "Lyra, a message came for you." Lyra's heart leaped. She took the pad and pressed the button. A soft sound played and a weak voice came through. It was Sarah. "Lyra, the camp was moved. We are now near the old mining field. Noma is safe, but food is short again. Be careful, child. Humans are building new factories near our land. Take care of yourself." The message ended there, but it was enough. Lyra felt tears in her eyes. Noma was safe, at least for now. Later that night, the captain found her sitting quietly in the hall. "You got news?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes, Captain. My sister is safe, but they are hungry again. I wish I could send food." He thought for a moment. "We'll stop near Rennis next month for supplies. I'll let you send some food and credits with the delivery ship. You've earned it." Lyra looked up at him with surprise. Really, Captain? You would allow that? He smiled slightly. You work hard and never complain. You deserve to help your family. Gratitude filled her heart. Thank you, Captain. I'll never forget this kindness. Over the next weeks, Lyra saved a small part of her payment and collected food packs that were not needed. When the ship finally reached orbit near Rhinus, she handed them to the delivery crew. She gave them a note with Noma's name and location. Please give this to the Rhinian camp near the old mining field, she said. The crew nodded and promised to deliver it. As the ship left orbit again, Lyra stood by the window, watching her planet grow smaller. She imagined Noma's face when she received the food. That thought gave her strength. Time moved on. Lyra became one of the most trusted helpers on the Starwind. The crew respected her calm nature and gentle work. Even the captain often asked her opinion on small matters, which made her proud. Yet she never forgot her goal. Every credit she earned, she saved for Noma's future. One day, when the ship was traveling through a quiet region of space, a sudden alarm rang through the halls. Lights flashed red and voices filled the speakers. Mira shouted for everyone to stay calm. What's happening? Lyra asked. A system failure, Mira said. The main engine is overheating. The crew rushed to fix it. Lyra followed Mira to help move the heavy tools. The air grew hot and smoky. She saw humans working together, their faces serious but focused. Lyra grabbed a small cooling unit and handed it to an engineer. After an hour of work, the lights turned normal again. The captain's voice came over the speaker. All systems stable. Good work, everyone, the crew cheered in relief. Mira smiled at Lyra. You did well. You're one of us now. Those words made Lyra's heart warm. She had come from the cold streets of Rhinus, and now she stood among humans who treated her as one of their own. For the first time, she truly believed that kindness could build bridges between worlds. That night, as she lay in her small bed, she thought about her sister again. Somewhere on the dusty planet below, Noma was looking at the same stars. Lyra closed her eyes and whispered softly, Hold on, Noma. I'm getting closer to bringing you a better life. The hum of the engines was gentle now, like a lullaby. The ship continued its long journey through the stars, carrying the quiet dreams of a girl who refused to give up on hope. The trade ship Starwind glided through deep space like a quiet bird. Its engines hummed softly as the crew worked through another long voyage. Inside the ship, Lyra moved carefully between rooms, cleaning tables and helping in the kitchen. She had now spent several months among humans, learning their language, their habits, and their ways of living. Many of them had become her friends. Mira, the chief helper, often smiled and told her she worked harder than anyone else. Some crew members even shared stories of their home planets with her. Lyra listened with bright eyes, imagining the warm green lands and blue seas they described. But no matter how many days passed, her thoughts always returned to her sister Noma. Every night, she looked out of the small window in her cabin and whispered her name. She hoped the food and credits she had sent had reached her safely. One evening, while Lyra was cleaning near the loading area, she heard two crewmen talking. They stood near the supply table, speaking in low voices. I heard the humans on Rhinus are building more factories, one said. They say the Rhinian camps are being moved again. Lyra froze. Her heart began to race. The second man nodded. Yes, I heard that too. Some of the locals are trying to resist, but the government wants the land for trade centers. The words hit her like a wave. She stepped forward and asked softly, Excuse me, did you say the Rhinian camps are moving again? The first man looked surprised. Oh, you're from there, aren't you? Yes, that's what the report said. But I don't know which camps. Lyra thanked them and walked away slowly. Her mind was full of worry. What if Noma's camp was one of them? What if Sarah could not protect her anymore? That night she couldn't sleep. She went to the control deck and asked the communication officer for help again. He checked the signals and shook his head. The weather near Rhinus is bad right now. We can't send or receive messages until we're closer. Lyra nodded and walked back to her cabin. She sat by the window, watching the stars pass by. Her heart was heavy, but she reminded herself of the captain's kindness and the strength she had gained here. She had come far, and she couldn't lose hope now. The next morning, the captain called a meeting in the main hall. All workers stood in rows as he spoke. We'll reach Rhinus orbit in 5 days. We'll stay there for refueling and trade for 2 days. Then we continue toward the eastern route. Everyone should prepare for long hours. Lyra's heart lifted slightly. 5 days. She could try to find her sister again. Those days passed slowly. Lyra worked hard, but her mind was full of thoughts of home. Every moment felt longer than the last. Finally, the day came when the ship entered Rhinus orbit. The planet looked smaller than she remembered, covered in gray clouds and dark land patches. The captain allowed some of the crew to go down to the surface for supplies. Lyra stood near the window, her eyes wet with emotion. She approached Captain Rennell and spoke softly. "Captain, may I ask something?" He looked at her kindly. "What is it, Lyra? Could I go down to the surface? I only need a few hours. I want to find my sister." The captain stayed silent for a few seconds. Then he nodded. "You've worked hard and earned my trust, but you must promise to return by sunset. We leave in the morning." Lyra's face brightened with gratitude. "Thank you, Captain. I'll return on time." He gave her a small travel pass and some credits. "Be careful and don't wander far from the city." She thanked him again and hurried to the transport pod. The small ship carried her and a few other crew members down to the planet. As soon as they landed, Lyra stepped onto the dusty ground. The air smelled of metal and smoke, just like she remembered. The sight of her home world filled her with both sadness and love. She walked quickly through the market streets, asking people about the Rhinian camps. Most humans ignored her, but one old vendor pointed toward the west side of the city. "The camps moved near the river field," he said. "Many Rhinians live there now." Lyra thanked him and started walking in that direction. The road was long and rough. Machines rolled by carrying heavy boxes and workers shouted orders. After nearly 2 hours, she reached the edge of the camp. The place looked poor but full of life. Small huts made of metal stood in lines. Children played near the river, and smoke rose from cooking fires. Lyra's eyes searched the faces of the people until she saw a familiar one. It was Sarah, the old woman who had taken care of Noma. Lyra ran to her and called out, "Sarah!" The old woman turned, her eyes wide with surprise. "Lyra, my dear child, you're back." They hugged tightly. Lyra looked around and asked quickly, "Where is Noma?" Sarah smiled gently. "She's here, safe. She has grown stronger. She talks about you every day." Lyra's heart filled with joy. "Can I see her?" Sarah nodded and pointed toward a small tent. Lyra ran to it and opened the curtain. Inside, a small girl sat on the floor, drawing lines on a piece of paper with a stick. When she looked up, her eyes went wide. "Lyra," she cried. Lyra fell to her knees and hugged her sister tightly. "Noma, I missed you so much." Noma held her face and said happily, "You came back just like you promised." Lyra smiled and stroked her sister's hair. "I told you I would." They sat together talking for hours. Lyra gave her the small gifts she had brought from the ship: packets of food, warm cloth, and a small glowing stone that changed color when touched. Noma laughed with wonder as she held it. Sarah joined them later and served warm soup. "You did well, Lyra," she said kindly. "You kept your promise." Lyra smiled, but her heart felt heavy again. She looked around the camp and saw tired faces, hungry children, and weak elders. "Sarah, things are still hard here," she said softly. "The humans are still taking more land," Sarah nodded. "Yes, they say more factories will come soon. Many of us will have to move again." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "There must be a way to help." Sarah touched her shoulder. "You are helping already. The food and credits you sent saved us during the cold weeks. You gave hope to everyone here." As the sun began to set, Lyra knew she had to return to the ship. She held Noma tightly. "I have to go again, but I'll keep working and send more. One day I'll bring you with me. We'll live in a place where there is no hunger." Noma looked up at her sister, her small eyes full of trust. "I'll wait for you, Lyra." Lyra smiled through her tears. "Be brave for me." Sarah walked with her back to the city gate. "Take care, child. The world may be hard, but your heart is strong." At the transport station, Lyra looked back one last time. She saw Noma waving from far away. The sight stayed in her heart as the pod rose into the sky. When she returned to the Starwind, the captain was waiting. "Did you find her?" he asked. "Yes, Captain," Lyra said softly. "She's safe." "Thank you for letting me go," he nodded. "Good, now rest. Tomorrow we travel again." That night, Lyra sat by her window watching the stars once more, but this time, her heart was filled with both peace and determination. She knew the road ahead was still hard, but she also knew that every day she worked brought her closer to a better life for her sister. As the Starwind left Rhinus orbit and returned to its endless journey, Lyra whispered into the quiet night, I'll never stop fighting for you, Noma. One day, we'll both see the stars together. The ship glowed under the light of distant suns, carrying a young alien girl whose love for her sister had become stronger than any boundary between worlds. Morning light spread across the metal horizon of the human colony. The air carried the soft hum of machines and the faint songs of distant birds that humans had brought from Earth. In a small home near the center of the colony, Lyra slowly opened her eyes. The ceiling above her was made of smooth glass, showing the gentle blue sky. For the first time in a long while, she did not feel hungry or afraid. Beside her, her younger sister Nia was still asleep, her face calm and soft. Their lives had changed completely. After Aaron, the human engineer, had found them and given them shelter, everything began to shift toward light. He had shared food, care, and warmth without asking for anything in return. The sisters could not understand at first why a human would show such kindness, but over time they realized that humans had hearts strong enough to protect even those who were not their own kind. That morning, Nia woke up and smiled. She looked healthier now. Her eyes, once dull and tired, were bright again. She sat up and saw her sister preparing breakfast on the small metal table. The smell of warm bread filled the room. "Good morning," Nia said softly. Lyra turned and smiled. "Good morning, Nia. Did you sleep well?" "Yes, I dreamed that we were flying between stars," Nia said, rubbing her eyes. "You were there and Aaron too. We were all happy." Lyra's heart filled with warmth. "That sounds like a nice dream. Maybe one day it will come true." They sat down to eat, and for a while the world outside seemed peaceful, but deep inside Lyra knew that their journey was not yet complete. Though they had found safety, the planet's future still hung in balance. The energy crisis had not ended, and many alien families still struggled for survival. Humans were helping, but not everyone trusted them. Some aliens still believed that humans only helped for their own gain. Lyra wanted to prove them wrong. After breakfast, she went to meet Aaron at the research center. The large silver building shone under the sunlight. Inside, many humans and aliens worked together, sharing ideas and knowledge. Aaron was standing near a large screen filled with data about energy waves. When he saw Lyra, his face brightened. "Good timing," he said. "We just made progress on the energy stabilizer. It might finally work." "That's wonderful," Lyra said. "Will it help the outer colonies too?" "That's the plan," Aaron replied. "If we can balance the energy flow, no one will need to starve again." Lyra nodded. "Then let's do it. I want to help." Over the next few days, Lyra worked side by side with Aaron and his team. She learned about human machines, power systems, and data codes. Her natural understanding of alien energy helped bridge the gap between the two technologies. The humans were amazed by her insight. Aaron often told her that her ideas opened doors they could not see before. While Lyra worked, Nia spent time in the learning center, where other alien and human children studied together. They learned languages, science, and art. Nia made friends quickly, her laughter echoing through the halls. Every time Lyra saw her smiling with other children, she felt hope. Weeks turned into months. Slowly, the colony began to grow greener. Plants started to bloom again, and energy flowed smoothly across the city. New homes were built for alien families. For the first time, the humans and aliens began to share their meals and stories without fear. One evening, as the sun painted the sky orange and gold, the colony gathered in the central square. Aaron stood on the stage, holding a small glowing sphere in his hand. Lyra stood beside him, feeling the eyes of everyone around her. "This," Aaron said, holding the sphere high, "is the result of working together. Human science and alien energy have created balance. This is our shared future." The crowd clapped and cheered. Lyra looked around and saw tears of happiness in many eyes. The light from the sphere grew brighter, spreading warmth through the air. Later that night, Lyra and Nia walked back home under the stars. The city lights sparkled around them. Nia looked up at the sky and whispered, "Do you think Mother and Father can see us now?" Lyra smiled softly. "Yes, I think they can. And I think they are proud of us." They stopped near a hill overlooking the colony. From there, they could see humans and aliens walking together, sharing food, talking, laughing. The sound of unity filled the air like music. Lyra turned to Nia and said, "Do you remember the day when you cried for food?" Nia looked down, her face a little sad. "Yes, it was a very hard day." Lyra took her sister's hand gently. "That day changed everything. We met Aaron. We met kindness. We met a new future." Nia nodded. And now no one will cry like that again. Lyra looked at the sky where 2 moons rose side by side. That is our promise, she said. Over time, the story of the 2 alien sisters and the human engineer spread across the stars. It became a tale of hope told in schools and gatherings. It reminded everyone that even in darkness, compassion could shine brighter than any star. One day, when the colony had grown into a thriving city, Lyra received a message from the Earth Council. They wanted her to join the Interplanetary Alliance as a voice for alien worlds. At first she hesitated, but Aaron encouraged her. You have seen both sides, he said. You know the pain of loss and the power of kindness. You can help build peace beyond this planet, Lyra agreed. On the day of her departure, the whole colony gathered to say goodbye. Nia hugged her tightly. Will you come back? Nia asked. Of course, Lyra said, smiling. I will always come back. This is our home. Aaron stood beside them, placing a hand on Lyra's shoulder. Go make the stars listen, he said. As the ship lifted off, Nia waved from the ground, her eyes shining. The sky above was filled with colors of dawn. Inside the ship, Lyra looked out the window. The planet below was glowing like a jewel. She thought about how far they had come, from hunger and fear to peace and unity. She closed her eyes and whispered a silent promise to herself and to her sister. She would make sure no one in the universe ever had to cry for food again. And so the girl who once wept beneath a cold sky became a symbol of hope for many worlds. The human who helped her became a legend of kindness. Together their story lived on, a reminder that when hearts reach across worlds, even the deepest wounds can heal, and the light of humanity can guide all beings toward a better tomorrow.